Hi, it's Vex, and today we want to talk about hybrid mana and why it'll just never happen. I know there's a lot of content creators are always like, we need hybrid mana, we need it now. I'm like, okay, if you need it, what's the justification for having it? Tell me a deck and tell me a card that you want inside the deck. They always, people always say, we need this because, but they never actually give a reasoning. So, before you even start, before the Flame Fast happens, before you all say, Vex, you're an idiot, hybrid mana is the way to go, you need to have it in there. Tell me, in the comments below, which card for which deck would you include a hybrid mana card for, and why is it important for your deck? Because Twitter and social media has gotten into a tizzy about wanting hybrid mana cards like Kitchen Sphinx, right here, my example, inside a mono white deck or a mono green deck. But before we actually start, let's actually explain a couple things. What color identity is in Commander. It's the color of this Kitchen Sphinx is actually green and white according to Magic, and the color identity is actually a little more strict than that. Let me read from the ruling here. It's a card's color identity is a color plus the color of any mana symbols, right, on the card, and including its rules text. So, for instance, Tasker is black, green, and blue, and essentially a deck can only have cards of its color identity. So, Kitchen Sphinx, for the color identity purposes, is green and white for Commander deck building. So, any Celestia type deck can include it. And a lot of people say, I want play my Kitchen Sphinx in my white deck. But really, are you really going to play Kitchen Sphinx in your white deck? How about Tasker? Tasker's color identity is Sultai, black, green, and blue. But people would argue that Tasker can be in a Golgari or Dimir deck. Or maybe they say Tasker can be cast for black and can be inside of a mono black deck. That's kind of crazy. So let's put Tasker aside and just talk about Kitchen Sphinx here. A lot of people want cards like Kitchen Sphinx in their deck because, the reason Kitchen Sphinx exists and because it was designed the way that it could be, it's like an or card. It's not an and card. Or card means it could be in a mono white deck or a mono green deck or, a Celestia deck. And these loud people on social media are always like, that's the way it's designed, so we should be able to play it that way. And then when people ask them about specific cards like, let's see here, Beseech the Queen, like Two-Brid, right? So this is a type of hybrid mana. This is two different colors of hybrid mana. This is generic and a color of hybrid mana. The same people who are asked, okay, Beseech the Queen is an aura card as well, right? Mono black in a black deck or in a colorless deck. Colorless deck, it would cost 6 generic to cast. In a black deck, it would cost triple black to cast. That's what's intended purpose. And some people, the same people who argue for Kitchen Sphinx, argue against Beseech the Queen, which is ridiculous, right? If you want Kitchen Sphinx to be in a mono white deck or a mono green deck, Beseech the Queen has to be essentially legal in every deck because it's a colorless card, right? Here's another example of hybrid cards. I brought Ashiok along, Japanese, just for fun, but we'll just keep that in the background. Kitchen Sphinx is important here. And then Streets of New Japan that just came out, which I'm holding right here, Genie Fey Jetmir 2nd, is an insanely crazy hybrid card. It didn't exist when a lot of discussion was happening, but now it exists. It's actually a mono green card, or a Gruul card, or a Celestia card, or a Naya card. So it has essentially 4 different color identities that it can belong to, which is kind of crazy. And people want to argue this is a mono green card, a Gruul card, a Celestia card, or a Naya card. I think, but the people who argue that don't see this point is that Genie Fey, if it had a color identity, a color marker, it would be all 3 colors. It is a Naya colored card. So the Commander's Rules Committee has actually stated here, for brevity, I'm just going to summarize hybrid mana. They basically said, we do not expect this definition of color identity to ever change, meaning that they're never going to change hybrid so it works the way some people want it to work, where this would be a mono white or mono green color, or this fit in 4 different color identities. But for sake of argument, if you were to allow that, right, Beseech the Queen as one argument. The extreme case is our friend the Reaper King here. you could pay 10 generic and cast the Reaper King, right? You could put it in a Kozilek deck that produces no colored mana. Then the Reaper King should be legal in every deck, but Reaper King is 5 colors. Like the color of the card is all 5 colors. Back to the argument, people say this should be legal in monocolored decks right here. The Reaper King, no, has to be in a 5-color deck. I was like, how do you word a rule that says 2-Brit doesn't count, but hybrid does? Because the intent when they designed it is that intent. You could play this in a colorless deck, or you could play it in a deck of the respective colors. Reaper King is essentially every color identity because you could pay 2 generic for every color that you don't have. Tasigur is a little bit different. A little special case with Tasigur because Tasigur has an activated ability. Tasigur can be cast in a mono black deck, right? No problem. Then maybe make a treasure or 2 and then you can cast Tasigur or activate Tasigur's abilities. So Tasigur's in a weird clouded zone. How would you classify Tasigur? Does it count the hybrid symbols in activation cost or not? If you notice, I do have a whole stack of cards as an example. So we'll keep going through. The rules committee in their FAQ section, which I read, the do not expect this definition of color identity to ever change, gives splitting image as an example. So splitting image is a Simic card. Of course it's a Simic card. It says put a token into play as copy of target creature. Splitting image can be countered with red elemental blast, right? A card that hoses blue cards, because this is a blue card, even if you pay all green for it. Or it cannot target a zombie outlander, because zombie outlander has protection from green. Because even if you pay all blue mana to do it, so this is for all intents and purposes, a green and blue card, even if the opposite mana is used to cast it. Let's actually take an example of that. Expand upon splitting image. Rogak, Son of Rogak. It costs 0, so technically any deck can play it because it doesn't cost anything to play. But it has a red color indicator, and I have the etch foil version because it looks pretty cool, right? Any deck can play it, right? Literally, but it's a red color identity card because it's a red card, right? But technically, there's nothing red about it, right? There's no ability. These abilities can probably be put in other colors, ish, loosely. I mean, there's some rule bending, but this can be put in any deck. So how do you account for this rule, right? It was intended that you could play it in any color deck because it has no casting cost. So that's where the rules get a little hazy, where people who just want this, who argue for kitchen finks, don't really think about all these other cards that rule can apply to, and how many exceptions that you have to make to a rule. And a lot of people say, "Oh, Vex, Magic players are smart. They can figure this out." I was like, yes, Magic players are smart, but to tell you what, you don't want to add more barrier to entry for somebody playing, because once you make the color identity rule not every single mana symbol on a card and the color of the creature itself, then the rules get a little more hazy, because now you have to be like, does this belong? Remember, Magic is an ever-evolving game. Before, a lot of people did the argument, Genie Fey and the Streets of New Capenna did not exist, but now it does exist. And now it's got 4 different identities versus Kitchen Finks, which has 2 identities, or 3. This has now 4. They could make one that has 5 identities. The Reaper King itself, right here, has there's 32 different color-ish identities in Magic. Reaper King has all of them, from colorless to 5-color and anything in between. Let's not stop there. I know I keep mixing my cards around. Let's just put the important cards here. We have 2-Brit, a weird hybrid here, and then we have something called 0. So I put all the other cards away. We have more examples, okay? I still have more. We have Archangel Avacyn, right? Archangel Avacyn is actually a Boros color identity card because it's got 2 faces. It's not a mold I mean, a double face card. I'm usually used to say mold double face card. It's a double face card. Archangel Avacyn is a white card, intended to be played in a white deck, right? But the opposite side is a red card with the converted mana cost or casting cost, mana value of 3 white. So actually, it'd be a red card with 3 white. It's very weird, I know, but that's how Archangel Avacyn works. In Avacyn the Purifier. This is a Boros commander because it's white and it's red. Again, with the rule clarification, if people wanted to change the hybrid rule, this would just be in a mono white deck. However, would this be in a red deck? I don't know. So you got to think about those rules too, because it technically doesn't have any red pips. It's just a red colored card. It cannot be cast for any red mana. It has to be cast for white mana. Would you actually make this mono white period? Because it can only be cast for mono white. I don't know. So that puts a little wrinkle here. I'll just leave it outside the sleeve. Then we have other ones like Westville Abbey. A lot of people, this is actually a double whammy, because a lot of people complain that, hey, cards like Westville Abbey and Field of the Dead make creature tokens that are outside the color identity. I don't consider creature tokens outside color identity because it's not the color of the card. It's a color of what happens with the card. You can have a mind bend or whatever that can change the color of a card, but that just doesn't change the card itself. So that's fine, because Westville Abbey makes a token that's white. Oops, wrong token. That's white and black right here. Westville Abbey is a black color identity card because, it's colorless in the front. It's black. Ormondal is black in the back. Westville Abbey can technically go in any deck, have any color identity, because it's a land, has no mana value, mana cost. So that's a weird situation, right? Does this turn to a colorless card? Does it turn to any color card? Does it go in any deck because it's a colorless card? So that's also one thing to consider. I have another example of a token generator, a white card. The designers meant this to be a white card, but it makes a green token. So that's not a great argument. I mean, everybody wants to argue for something, but we'll leave that there. So now that we have, hybrid, multiple hybrid, 0, 2-brid, Archangel Avacyn, we have more examples. Split cards, right? A split card can technically go in a red deck or a blue deck. It's much better to go in Izzet deck because you want to be able to cast, optionality. However, if you just want the ice part, you could just play it in blue deck, right? Where these cards go. So now you have to amend this giant rule that you've made to not include this. What about this? To do it for this. What about these cards? Because they are or cards. Because they're not fused, right? There's also the fused cards from Dragon's Maze, but these aren't fused. So I don't know what you consider this. Then there's the craziest wrinkle here, Phyrexian Mana cards, right there. Phyrexian Mana cards. Their design was, you can pay 2 life instead of the color, so you can cast them in any color deck. Gitaxian Probe goes in any color deck because it can be cast for 2 life. How do you consider this? A lot of people would, ridiculous, would argue that, yes, this goes in a white deck, but this has to go in the blue deck, but technically you can cast it with life instead of colors, so this can technically fit in any deck. Same for Birthing Pod and Mental Misstep. There, we'll just put Birthing Pod here. So with all these reasonings right here, I hope this is enough to actually make you think critically about why hybrids just doesn't work. It's much more simpler, more elegant to say Reaper King is 5 colors because you see all 5 pips on Reaper King. Rogak is red because it's got a red color identity. Birthing Pod is green because it's green color identity. Even though you could use, just life to cast, life and generic mana to cast this, or this cast costs nothing. Genie Fae because Genie Fae is a 3-color creature, so it's a Naya color identity. Same for Kitchen Sphinx, Selesnya. Archangel Avacyn because it's red on the back. We just say it's Boros. This is Izzet. It just takes off the mental load of deck building, and I just see no reason. Archangel Avacyn would be really good in the Angel deck. I understand that, and that's might be one exception, but that doesn't even include hybrid, right? It doesn't even touch what people are complaining for is this card in a mono white deck. So I hope this video gives some clarity with more cards than what Twitter presents, because Twitter just says we need this in our deck. Period. I'm right. You're wrong. It's kind of weird, and I agree with the rules committee. Just looking at this here now, if these cards didn't exist, right? If Magic existed in a vacuum, maybe hybrid would be okay, but hybrid does not exist in a vacuum. These cards do exist in Magic. Future cards will come up, like Rograk, Genie Fae, will come up after people argue for it and have more reasons of not including it. As a bonus, there is a interesting Phyrexian 2 hybrid mana. Tamio, the completed Sage, is the only one with the Phyrexian one. But imagine if this doesn't exist yet, but if it does, imagine Kitchen Finks with Phyrexian, 2 Phyrexian Selesnya. How would you classify that? Because it's technically a hybrid, but you can technically play life. But this is the only one with that casting cost. But now that they've done the Phyrexian hybrid, they can apply it and make cards colorless. I don't think they will because it's overpowered. But that is another case against having hybrid as you know, the way that people want it to be, mono white, mono green. And if you made it to the end of the video, you know, if you still think I'm wrong, you know, that's your opinion, that's fine, I don't mind. I agree with the rules committee. The rules committee has made a special rule 0, so you could technically include this in your mono white deck if you really want to. If somebody came up to me and is like, you know, I got this hybrid card in my mono white deck, I'm like, sure, whatever, I don't care. But you know, I agree with the official rules of Commander that hybrid should not belong because we have all these weird cases, and it's hard to justify hybrid when you have situations like this. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, you know, leave your opinions in the comments because I'm curious what your opinions are. Remember, you're not right or wrong, but if you are on the hybrid train, I would like, you know, to hear some justification about these other situations and how you would actually word the rules to actually allow this to happen. And hopefully the rules aren't like 20 paragraphs long because of exceptions. And once again, there's always rule 0 to allow you to just, you know, add hybrid cards. You can add rogue deck in whatever deck you want, as long as you have a nice, good rule 0 conversation with the play group and say, hey, I want rogue deck in my deck. Is it okay? Like, sure, no problem. And that's all I have for you today. And I hope you have a wonderful day.